This is David with Corel Training.
This is Cassie Green from Apparelist.
This is Gordon and Firemark from the Entertainment Law Update.
And you're listening to
Two Regular Guys podcast.
Hosted by Terry Combs RG, Regular Guy, and Aaron Montgomery.
The place to be for industry news.
the best dad jokes on earth, along with relevant topics to apparel decorating.
So pass it away.
All right, welcome to the show. It is Friday, July 12th, 2024. I'm Terry Combs, and you can find me at terrycombs.com.
And I'm Aaron Montgomery from our Success Group, and my mission is to inspire you to fall deeper in love with your business. And Terry, we're going to talk about a topic that you and I recently, I guess it was last year, was it something like that?
Yeah.
You know, time flies when you're having fun, right? So we put together a training program on kind of the essentials of DTG and DTF, just to give people that are maybe not necessarily new, but maybe let's say they're coming from a different print space. Maybe they haven't done DTG or DTF, and maybe they're screen printers or embroiderers, or maybe they're just paper printers or whatever. And so Printing United asked us to put together an overview of the program, all the bits and pieces that you need, not just hey, we're here to sell you a piece of equipment, but here's all the things you need to think about kind of thing. And so it's been really well received. Lots of people have been checking it out and purchasing it. And so we thought, you know what, let's hit that here. Let's do an overview of that program here, just so you guys can kind of get an idea of it. Pop in anything in the comments that you think maybe we missed or whatever, and we'll have a great discussion about DTG DTF today. So sound like a plan?
I think more than anything, it was a good way for people to have a really strong understanding of really three processes: direct to garment use, or DTF using direct to garment, and DTF printing. So I think people walk away from that saying, okay, I get it. I can go out there on a show floor and talk intelligently, or with my customers, talk intelligently about what you can and can't do with these processes. So, and to all of our listeners out there, we're not going to do multiple hours like we did for Printing United.
Yes, we're gonna pack this into our segment here and make sure that we get it done. This is going to be a good test for us, Terry. When we do host shows, we rarely are on time. So let's see if we can do it.
and we had so much information that we're going to squeeze down into a little ball.
We've got the whole outline right. Oh, do we have enough to talk about? Yeah, right.
I've thought that for every show for 12 years. I do not think that today.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, so let's dive in a little bit here now. Today is also going to be a little bit unique because we don't have a news segment for you today. Marcia wasn't able to join us from Screen Printing Magazine, so we're working on that. And also, normally in this week's slot, we would have Dane Clement joining us to give us the secret sauce, but he was also unavailable. So we just said, you know what, we've got plenty of information here. We're going to cover a lot of great points and topics that can
spread out a little bit.
And yeah, that's right. So anyhow, so just it'll feel a little bit different today, but never fear, everyone. Terry has still got a dad joke for us. So
I do.
Are you ready for that?
I know I'm ready.
Okay, here we go.
Hey, Aaron, what did Jay-Z call his wife before they got married?
I don't know, Terry. What did he call his wife?
Fiance. For our podcast listeners, that's Beyonce with an F.
Wait, Eric, he's even got the banner, the Beyonce plus fiance. Oh man, so good, so good. All right, good stuff, Terry. Thank you.
I as you know, Aaron, I had a different one up there, and then I thought, oh wait, this is way better. I'm gonna switch out. We'll save the other one for later.
It sounds good. Sounds good.
All right. Before we dive in, we want to thank everybody for checking out the Regular Guys podcast. Again, we need your voices. We would love to have the regulators participate in all of our show intros. So go to decorators.ink./intro and read a few sentences to be a part of every show. And don't be left out. We are always looking for new guests. So if you or anyone you know would like to join us, go to calendly.com/2, the number 2, regular guys, to book a future episode, or email us at info@2regularguys.com with your show ideas. If you are listening to the podcast version of the show, we would appreciate you sharing the Two Regular Guys podcast with all of your industry friends so they can become regulators too. And we would appreciate you giving us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, wherever you do your podcast listening, we are there. And if you're watching us live right now, please join in with your comments and questions. And let's get on with the show, Aaron.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Before we do that, though, let's make sure that we talk to the regulators that are checking in here. Again, that's what we really are hoping to, is have a discussion here with you guys about DTG and DTF printing. You know, we've got our kind of modules laid out, and so we'll hit those topics, and we want to hear what you guys think. But we had Chuck checking in early this morning from Florida, sunny Florida, I believe, is there. And we've got Thomas joining us from Mountaineer Design. So thanks for being here with us, Thomas. We've got Cassie Green from The Apparelist. I think she's with us next week. Maybe I've got that date wrong, so don't quote me on that, Cassie. But she's excited for today's show and topic. And Ramona McKee is joining us. Good morning, fellas. Good to see you. Thank you. Good to be seen. And Cindy King checking in. Let's see what else we got here. Ramona says, I love for the podcast listeners note at the end, right? And it is very good, Terry. I love that. I do have to give a apology to all the podcast listeners. If you're a podcast listener, you won't be hearing this until it's already too late anyhow. I am way behind on shows right now. So I'm back home this weekend. I'm not going to try to dump them all in one weekend. I'll try to spread them out over a couple of days. So, yeah. So,
you sound like a guy who's been on the road, Aaron, for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. I left on the 23rd of June, and I am just now back home. I was back home for one day, and I was sick that day, and then back on the road. So,
well, I know I got a message from you my time about 9:30 last night saying, hey, I'm home.
Yeah. I just got home. So, let's see here. Chuck says, Aaron, did I see you're having Daniel the Laser Dude on Small Business Saturday tomorrow? I don't know Daniel the Laser Dude, and I know it's my wife that's joining me on Small Business Saturdays tomorrow. So I'm sorry that, yeah, I guess the answer is no, Chuck.
He is having the sublimation dudette.
Yes, that's right. That's right. She's the ornament making machine. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure that you go out there and share this with your friends. Make sure you're liked and subscribed and all the fun stuff over there on YouTube if you're not already. And Terry, are you ready to dive into this DTG DTF essentials here?
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't you tell our listeners about Printing United Education before we jump in?
Yeah. I think that's a great place to start. So if you guys haven't heard about it, and we talked about it a lot when we were putting this together, so but we haven't talked about it enough since, and so we thought this is a great opportunity. If you go over to ilearningplus.org, and you can check it out. They've got tons of great education, great information. But specifically, the one we're talking about here today is called DTG DTF Printing Technology Essentials. And you can go directly to that there. And it's just, it was a fun program to put together, Terry. You and I got to kind of have a discussion. You know, I got to come to it from a place where I don't have a horse in this race anymore. Right. So I was able to share things that, you know, I don't know if it's out of school but we weren't trying to direct anybody at any type of information. We were trying to give them, and you'll see here as we lay this out, just kind of give them the good, the bad, and the ugly of the process in general. So if you want to go check that out, it's a great program. You purchase it and you have access to it for life. There's tons of great programs in there, but again, get over to ilearningplus.org and you can check that out. I've also done one on sublimation essentials that you can check out. I think there's some other ones. I'm not sure if you have any others or not, Terry.
I don't. I volunteered to do screen printing, and they said, "Oh, we already have somebody doing that." So.
Okay. All right. I gotcha. So, anyhow, really great information over there. I guess, Terry, so the course itself, we kind of talked about what's possible and the how-tos. And then there's a knowledge assessment, right? So there's a test, which is kind of fun. It helps you kind of know, okay, did I learn what I needed to learn? And what I really think is cool about the program, Terry, you put together this awesome list of questions to ask the manufacturers. And I'm not sure if this is just to make everybody uncomfortable, but no, I'm kidding. These are really great questions that we need to be asking. So I think the price of the course is worth that list of questions alone, Terry.
Well, I appreciate that. And that comes from me standing at a trade show booth for, you and I have been doing trade shows together, Aaron, for 20 plus years. And I think we were both doing the shows before we met one another. And, just the questions that people ask. And, for everybody working in a trade show booth, we hear the exact same question 47 times a day. And so you start making note of those questions and so that you can communicate those answers to people before they have to ask is what I'm getting at.
100%.
It doesn't bother us at all that you're asking that same question. The different people are asking that same question over and over again, but it does tell us that, maybe we're not promoting our product the way that when you walk up to the booth, the answer, but also my list of 8 questions was for the purpose of comparing companies and machines and getting not what they're trying to promote to you. Here's why my machine is great is here's, each company gets to tell you their response to a specific question. So you can really make a comparison when you're trying to make a purchasing decision.
Yeah. I think it's awesome. And, with all of the, it was one thing when it was just DTG, you kind of had the main players and, you kind of could figure it out pretty quickly. But I mean, you can't walk through a trade show nowadays without, bumping into some new DTF printer that we've never seen or heard of before, and a new company that you've never seen or heard of, before. So,
Aaron, I went to the sign show in Vegas last year, and Jay Bassell and myself went up because, for equipment zones on the East Coast, but we're here in Phoenix, so it's a 45-minute flight, and so we were walking around and just noting how many DTF companies were there, and the fact that we only knew 2 of them. And every other one there displaying we had never heard of before.
And that doesn't mean that the new companies are necessarily bad or you shouldn't be buying from them. It just means, okay, how do you, with all of that, right? How do you compare and contrast? And I think that list of questions is a great way to do it. So let's dive into this, Terry. What's module 1?
Well, module 1 is, basically talking about direct to garment. There are 3 components, and this is a repeat for some folks here, but not everybody. There's 3 components to direct to garment printing. There is your printer, which is either purpose built or a repurposed paper printer. And, all of them, when you and I started selling machines 19 years ago, they were all repurposed paper printers, but today there are purpose-built machines built for specifically with a print head built specifically for this ink system, or repurposed paper printers using print heads for paper printing that you're introducing a different ink into. So, that's a show in itself. You have to have some method to pre-treat shirts, whether that's with a handheld sprayer, whether that's with an automatic pre-treat machine, which is today by far the most common way that people pre-treat shirts. And there are pre-treated shirts that you buy with pre-treat on them already. And some of them are awesome. Some of them are, not necessarily up to par. And I read a post online, and somebody was having an issue with DTG printing, and she was trying to eliminate the variables and said, well, I know it's not the shirt because I bought it already pre-treated. Well, I wish that were true, but you still have to buy these shirts and test them because they are not equal. They're not all equal. So, and the last thing is a method to cure. So you need a printer, you need some method to pre-treat. If you're going, and anytime you print white ink on a color shirt, you have to pre-treat the shirt.
Yeah.
And the last is some way to cure, whether that's a conveyor dryer or whether it is a heat press. So you need all three of those things to make this happen.
Yeah, for sure. Real quick, Dean from IGT here checking in. So I wanted to say hello. He says, looking forward to the conversation. And Dot Tone Dan Campbell just popped in. So welcome in, you guys. Thank you for being here.
Speaking at an event in Nashville here, or did it already happen? I don't remember. Sorry, Dan.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that one. So, all right. Well, Terry, so the next thing we got into was, and curious, again, you mentioned the pre-treat already, but give us a little more detail on that. And just so everybody's clear here, we kind of looked at this at two different, right? Because a lot of times DTG and DTF get kind of lumped in together, but we are talking two separate things here. So when we're in the DTG conversation right now, right? So go ahead and talk to us about pre-treatment.
Well, let me answer a quick question on that. When you are doing DTF transfers, you do not need to pre-treat the shirt. And I get that question probably every other day because we talk so much about, and when you're doing DTF printing on a DTG printer, it's, you're in your head thinking, I've got to pre-treat the shirt because it's navy, but not necessary. The pre-treat is basically this. There's some binders in there, some chemicals. The secret ingredient of pre-treat is salt water. So why salt water? What happens is when that pre-treat goes on the shirt and it dries, there's an invisible layer of salt on the shirt. What happens when white water-based ink hits that salt tries to pull the water out of the ink. And so that's what causes that that ink to sit up on top of the shirt. Without drying that pre-treat from the bottom up, that ink is just going to soak into that shirt in 10 minutes, it's going to disappear. Yeah. So that's the secret of pre-treat. And now there are specifically pre-treats for different types of ink systems, but that's something you need to talk to your supplier about. But for instance, Brother and Epson need one type of pre-treat. DuPont inks need a different type of pre-treat. And who uses DuPont inks? Companies that have converted over paper printers. So you do need to use the right pre-treat for the ink system that you have, but your supplier should be able to help you with that. But there are different ways, Aaron. Our second module was talking about how to apply pre-treat, and in descending order of worst to best, paint rollers. The Hobby Lobby method, Aaron, as we say, of pre-treating is using a paint roller, lays down far too much pre-treat. So I don't like to say that. Don't ever, what's that?
Can I tell a funny story about that in a second?
Yes, please.
All right. And they're no longer there, so they can't be mad at me anymore. But I remember when Epson first came to market with their printer, right? Epson, great at printers, great at all that stuff. The pre-treatment was not quite in their wheelhouse quite yet. So I went out to this Epson training, and the training method was to go to Home Depot, get these specific paint rollers, make sure you have a place to hang your shirts. The gentleman doing this training just said, oh, I have these rafters in my garage, and I just hang them over. Okay. And so that was their original method, was the paint roller method. So I just
it took a couple of years of saying, you guys really need to take that off your website.
Yeah.
before they finally did.
I get it, right? They were just looking for what the solution was. That wasn't their wheelhouse, but they needed to get, talk to people like you and get a little bit deeper into that side of it, right? Great with the printers awesome, but how do you get that ink to stay on a dark shirt? That was a little beyond their capabilities yet.
And Aaron, a big thing about suppliers, and in my screen printing classes, I talk a lot about suppliers, not in the sense that, hey, your supplier's trying to mislead you. It's that they don't. First of all, they sell a lot of different products, but second of all, a lot of folks who will try to show you how to do this are not production people. They're support tech people, which means it doesn't matter to them if it takes 5 minutes, because now it's perfect. It's fine.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
guess what? I'm a production guy. 5 minutes is not acceptable. You have to do it a different way.
Yeah.
So
I think
anyway.
I think you find that quite a bit, not just in DTG, DTF, et cetera.
Absolutely.
I mean, I see that in sublimation all the time. You got the tech people, here's the way to do it. And I'm going, my God, how are you ever going to charge enough to make up for that? Right. It's just like that's not feasible. I can't make enough to make it that process. So,
well, I've had that conversation with customers, I mean, forever, but well, your tech guys said to do it like this. And my response is, he's really good at what he does. He's not a production guy. Production people have to find ways to do things quickly and correctly, but
yeah, you have to find that middle ground, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk to real quick, Terry. I know you've got a few more we started with paint rollers. I got us off track, shocking. But real quick, Dan says the event he's doing August 9th and 10th in Nashville.
Oh, very good, very good.
Yep. And
That's
then Dean,
and it's all about screen printing separations and a little mid journey. That sort of thing is good.
Yep.
So it
I
sounds
rode
like
in an Uber with Marshall Atkinson last night. I heard all about it. So
okay, very good. Well, when I saw that Dan was going to be there, I thought, well, this is going to be a really good class because nobody knows more about screen printing artwork than Dan. So
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
I think it's great stuff. All right. Dean says, we tried pre-treat via DTF to eliminate the powder step. It's not there completely yet, but think it may be an option here soon, especially since the powder is a concern these days. And then Dean says pre-treat is essential to being successful in DTG and has always had a bad rap. It's come a long way since the start, but it's still considered such a hassle when in reality, it's not difficult, just a very important step. So
yeah, critical step, and you can use a hand sprayer. These new like the Epson 1070, which is like a tabletop DTG printer. I'm anticipating people using a mist sprayer to pre-treat shirts because that printer takes 5 minutes to print a shirt. Using a mist sprayer. Bottom line is, I don't think people are going to invest a lot more than for the printer and for a heat press in that scenario. And hey, we use mist sprayers if we're going to print on tennis shoes. If we're going to just do like a little left chest, there's nothing wrong. And by mist sprayer, I'm talking about those. They're like $5 on Amazon. It's that sprayer like a Febreze refillable spray bottle. Those work great, much better than like a pump sprayer that you get at Home Depot for $1.25. But ideal scenario would be an automatic pre-treat machine. You load the shirt, you push the button, pre-treat shirt in about 6 seconds. And why is that important? Because every shirt is pre-treated exactly the same way. If you're pre-treating by hand, you'll see variation from shirt to shirt to shirt. And with an automatic pre-treat machine, every shirt will be pre-treated the same, which means every print will look exactly the same. So it's pre-treating is critical to the process. And I mentioned before, Aaron, the already pre-treated shirts. They're getting better and better. RTP Apparel, ready to print, rtpapparel.com. Their shirts are fantastic. They're in Eastern Ohio. Sanmar, their shirts are getting better and better, and they have a wide variety of shirts. I have Hanes has a line out. I have to confess, I've never printed on one of the Hanes shirts, so I don't have any information on that. But there will be more and more and more shirts available. If you do not want to take the pre-treat steps, and the price of those shirts is coming down, so it's not out of line, for what you can get for a DTG printed shirt, because the average selling price of a DTG printed shirt is 20 up. So, you can afford to pay another $1 for the shirt if you're making that kind of profit margin. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. A couple more comments for those folks here that are listening in live right now. Love to hear from you guys. Who is doing DTG printing right now, and what is your pre-treat method of choice? So Doug Sobel says quilt shops sell great spray bottles. They really mist well.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
Dean says invest in your operations and get the best results. Even the most expensive DTG printers will have a crap result if the pre-treat step is mucked up. Yep, 100%. Okay, so Terry, I want to make sure we're going to be on time today, darn it. And we're only in module 2. Come on. So you said there's 3 main parts. So let's hit that third part here, and then let's move on to DTF.
Yeah. Okay. So curing, I'm going to say 98%, and that's probably not an exaggeration. We'll use a heat press.
Yep.
Most people, if you are just doing DTG printing or transfers on your DTG printer, then you're going to buy a clamshell press, up and down.
Yep. Yep.
If you're also applying bling, you're doing, rhinestones, anything like that, then a swing away is going to be better for you. But a clamshell is going to have, and buy it with auto release, because here's the rule of heat pressing. The further you away from your heat press you get, the higher the chance of that little buzzer going off and saying it's done. So if you, it's a fact of production life. But if you have an auto release, you can be doing other stuff. It'll just pop up when it's done, and you're good to go. Hovering used in your heat press. This is something I hear about so often. Well, I hover for a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes to start the drying process. What's happening when you're hovering and drying is it's just air drying. The same thing can happen if you just sit on a table next to your heat press and you don't tie up your heat press. Heat presses are contact heat sources, which means hold your hand a half inch away from your heat press and you'll feel almost no heat. It generates heat when it touches something. So hovering is one of those things that's talked about all the time, but same effect by just sitting it on the table next to the heat press for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Conveyor dryers work great. I hear from a lot of people saying, "Hey, I need to buy a conveyor dryer for my DTG printer," and I'm like, "Okay, why? Why do you need that? Are you doing a lot of production? Do you have multiple?" Because that's what I see. People have multiple printers. Then a conveyor dryer makes a lot more sense. I have a customer here in Phoenix that he bought his first conveyor dryer when he bought his third DTG printer. And now he has a couple of conveyor dryers because he has 15 DTG printers. But if you're just running one machine, a heat press is really the way to go. But what happens is I say, "Why are you buying it?" "Well, I'm getting this box around my shirts, and so conveyor dryer will get rid of that." It will, but also if you lighten the pressure and back off on the amount of pre-treat, that will also get rid of it. So you can go with the $7,000 solution, or just use the heat press you have, and not and just, again, your pressure is just touching that shirt. And I know we don't want to go over, but here's a trick for how much pressure to put on a shirt when you're curing the ink. Put a shirt on your heat press, lay a silicone coated piece of parchment paper on top of it, and clamp it down. Back off on the pressure until that paper will slide out, and then tighten it back again a quarter turn. That's the perfect pressure for curing that. It just touches the shirt. So, and then, speaking of a silicone paper, there are companies out there that say, "Well, don't buy that silicone paper because, you can only use it 3 or 4 times and throw it away." They cost pennies, but they'll say, "Buy the Teflon sheet instead." The Teflon sheet that, Aaron, that we've all used for transfers and things like that.
Sure.
Well, that's bad advice, because to cure water-based ink, you have to evaporate the water. And Teflon will hold that water in so that it will look like it's cured. But when you go to wash it, you're gonna have washout issues. Silicone coated parchment paper, cookie sheets, by the way, go to your restaurant
Cookie
supply.
Yep.
And it's coated with silicone, so those chocolate chip cookies just slide off.
Yep.
But you will see the steam coming out because the silicone parchment paper will allow the water to escape.
Yep.
So anyway.
Yeah,
that's
Teflon in general. There's not a whole lot of uses I can find for that in many places. It just, because same thing with sublimation, it just traps the moisture in there, and you start getting So
those Teflon sheets are from my era, where we did a lot of transfers. We bought transfers from Transfer Express and all those transfer houses, and that Teflon was nice to just put over that transfer. But I agree with you. Beyond that, there's not much purpose for it. So.
Yeah. All right. Real quick from Doug says, I outsource my DTF screen print transfers. How can I get my artwork to separate and have good halftones to do gradients like if I did the screen print myself? My suggestion, Doug, is to reach out to Dot Tone Dan Campbell. He would be the best person to answer that question, I would say. So,
and he's in the chat.
And he is in the chat. Yeah. And then Cindy says, I was going to say the same thing. They're like Dawn soapy spray. I haven't tried reusing one of the Dawn spray bottles. Oh, about the quilting from earlier. Cindy was talking about getting the bottles from the quilting stores. So there you go.
Yeah. And Amazon had a sale on those bottles. It was like 2 for $5 like a month ago. So they're very inexpensive.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah.
We'll have to get a link out there. Yeah. We'll have to find it and get a link out there for everybody. So stay tuned on that. Dean says, I hear about people wanting to use a conveyor to try to eliminate any boxing issues, whereas a lot of that is an over application of the pre-treatment setup. Throwing money at solving issues makes me laugh. Just take some time to educate yourself on how to apply the pre-treatment properly and understand there's no one setting to cover it. And that's exactly, I think that is where, as business owners, as production people, as people in this industry, we need to come up with processes that work, right? And so how do you, but when you're trying to be all things to everybody, how do you have a process for everything, right? So I could get way up on my soapbox on this deal, but the reality is, let's fix the problem, educate ourselves, show up on shows like this, listen to Terry, that kind of thing. All right, Terry, you ready to move on here into our
process
next
number 2?
Yeah. And so
like the number 2.
So we also looked at DTF a little bit. I don't know, not necessarily different, but we wanted to kind of say, okay, DTF, you've got the DTF, and what we'll start talking about here is doing DTF on a DTG machine. And then, what the process is with that. And then also talking about DTF by itself as a more of a standalone operation, right? Is that kind of how
right? Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of the transition between the two.
Yeah, exactly. So we first talked about, direct to film on a DTG machine and just kind of how it worked and why you would want to do that, right? Like, I've got a DTG machine. Why would I want to also print film transfers? And there's some really good reasons. You get a wider range of substrates. I mean, I knew people early on in the process that were printing, they had a DTG printer that wasn't all that quick. And so they actually found it faster to produce because they could print more at the same time on a sheet. And so they'd gang up all of the prints that they needed to do on film and then be able to press quicker than the machine was printing. Or left chest logos, for example. Even though it was going on to 100% cotton shirt, they just found the production quicker to do left chest logos that way. So you kind of get a wider range of substrates, but you can also increase your production efficiency. And then another point was dye migration. Can you speak to that a little bit, Terry?
Yeah, absolutely. Dye migration is the scourge of screen printing and direct to garment printing. And So dye migration is this: if when a cotton shirt is dyed, the dye stays inside. It's locked into that cotton thread, and it's never coming out.
Yeah.
When polyester threads are dyed, that dye basically sits on top of those polyester threads. Under heat, it will release. So that red 50-50 shirt you're printing on, or God forbid, 100% polyester red shirt, and you're printing white on top of it, the dye will release and that beautiful white print will turn pink.
Yeah.
And so screen printers have different tricks that they do to print on those substrates. Nearly impossible on a DTG printer to get a really good print, especially when you get to the 100% polyester end of the spectrum. You're going to have dye migration. But so a DTF transfer, what happens with that is that that layer of adhesive powder will block the dye into the shirt, and it will never come in. So I can do a big white print on 100% polyester garment, and that polyurethane resin powder will be a barrier between the two. So that's one of the big reasons. I don't know if I mentioned this. Most people know this by now, but DTG printing works best on 100% cotton garments or high cotton content blends, like an 80-20 sweatshirt. When you get down to 50-50, you can get an acceptable print, but that print's going to be much brighter and certainly no dye migration if you make a DTF transfer instead. And Aaron, let me add something about this here. A lot of folks, especially early on, thought that they had to get an entirely different ink system. There were multiple steps in doing this before, but not today. Most software that runs a DTG printer will have an option. You click the button for DTF, it will flip the image and it will print in reverse order. It'll print the color and then the white on top. So it's very, very easy today, because before, gosh, it was you run it as a white print and then you stop it and then you run it as CMYK print and it was or just the opposite of that. But it's a super easy process today.
Yeah. And I think that was also the cool part, right? I've got an Epson F2100 here. And so you just you buy the film, you buy the powder, you stick the film on there, you print it, right? And do I do it all the time? Would I do it every day? No, but I would probably job out my DTF transfers if I was doing a lot. But if I need something quick, one-offs, short runs, it's easy. And so I guess the next part, Terry, though, is then you start getting into the curing and the film and the application on that. Let's not take too long here, but let's just give people that kind of overview of, okay, what do I do if I'm using my DTG printer and I want to print my own DTF transfers?
Yeah, sure. Again, in the software, you're going to select DTF print. You are just going to lay that film on your platen. If you think it might move a little bit of blue painter's tape on each corner or two corners, you're going to do your print. And while it's still wet, maybe in a tub, you're going to sprinkle the adhesive powder, polyurethane resin powder. And this is the same powder that we use for screen printing for decades for screen print transfers. So, and then you're just going to lift it out of the powder, shake it a little bit, and take it to cure. And it's a pretty easy process. And Aaron, today, really in the last 6-8 months, really good quality enclosed powder shakers for single sheets have come out. You take the film, put it in there, close the door, hit the button, it drops the powder on there and then vibrates from the back to knock off any excess. So there's no powder in the air. And so that is certainly the future of cut sheet transfer for DTG.
Nice. Okay. And any quick tips on kind of curing the powder, so to speak?
Yeah, absolutely. There are several different ways you can do that. You can, if you're a screen printer, you can send it down your conveyor dryer, just speed it way up. If you can buy a heat press almost every heat press on the market has an option to buy a heated bottom panel, and you can turn that on to your normal 330, 338 degrees, lay that transfer on the heated panel, and for about 60 to 90 seconds, and you're good to go. You don't have to buy anything. You can bring your heat press down and heat that bottom platen for 30 seconds, pop it up. While that platen's hot, lay that transfer on there, and it will melt that adhesive on top. And 90 seconds later, you're going to have your transfer without investing anything. A lot of people today, Aaron, are buying a sheet dryer oven, so it almost looks like an easy bake oven. Okay. You open the drawer, drop the transfer in, close the drawer, hit the button, and in about 60 seconds, it will cure that transfer. So it's quick and easy and to the point. But you can do it. You have to have a heat press in your shop to be doing this in the first place. So if you just want to try this, Aaron, just like you said a couple of minutes ago, all you need to buy is the film and the adhesive powder, and you're ready to make transfers. Yeah. These other options, the heated bottom or the sheet dryer, those are just things that are going to speed up the process for you.
Yeah. Interesting. I wonder, now I'm thinking about it. You talk about the Easy Bake Oven. I've got this, they call it the 3D press, the vacuum seal press that we would use in sublimation, but you can actually do that without the vacuum seal, and it really is just an oven.
I think it absolutely would work.
So, all right, I'm testing that today. I don't have any DTF transfers to print, but if anybody needs
something, you can report back next week.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, okay. So that kind of got us through the DTG machines. So we next kind of moved on to the standalone machines. Now, let's not get too deep into this because we got a lot of other areas we want to cover here yet, but give us a quick, okay, what's the difference? And if I've got a DTG machine already, why would I consider one? Or if I don't have a DTG machine, where should I start? That kind of thing.
Gotcha. Well, I always tell people, people will come to me and say, well, I don't have any machine. I don't know how often I'll do DTF transfers, and maybe once a week. I'm going to say you probably should start with the DTG printer, because DTG printers have been around for 20 years now. Yep. And the technology is such that many of them, you could leave them turned off for a week or 2 weeks and not have to worry about it. The flip side of that is I'm going to be doing a lot of transfers, and just about everyone I talk to says, and I want to sell transfers. So then you're going to want a machine that's able to output just film or just transfers that are finished. Because if you're doing this on a DTG printer, even if you have one of the cabinets that will put the adhesive on there, it's still a multiple step process. A standalone DTG printer, it is going to print film on a roll. That film is going to go down into a powder shaker where it's going to dump powder on it, and it's going to vibrate and shake it off. And then it's going to put it right onto a dryer belt. When it comes out the other end, it is a finished transfer. It is ready to be cut out and heat applied onto a garment. So much more efficient. Aaron, the flip side of that too is on a DTG printer, I'm just going to throw a rough number out there, about $1.25 to do a transfer on a DTG printer. On a standalone DTF printer, you're looking at anywhere from 50 to 60 cents, maybe more depending on what machine you buy, but 50 or 60 cents per square foot. So that transfer that you guys are buying out there in the open marketplace and paying $6 or $8, that transfer costs about 50 cents to make. That's the film, that's the ink, that's the adhesive powder. Plus you never touch it. Once you start printing, it's going to go through the entire process and just be a finished product as it comes out the other end. So if you're planning on doing a lot of transfers, this is definitely the way to go. Now, bear in mind, it's new technology. These printers have been around for roughly 3 years or so. Yeah. And again, the benefit for all of us is that Aaron and I personally went through all the growing pains with
It's on the
DTG
scars
printers.
to prove it.
Exactly right. So all those issues, because the inks are virtually the same. What you're introducing is the adhesive powder, which is also the product that we've been using for decades. So a lot of the growing pains we went through already. So the development from 3 years ago to today was pretty speedy. And, there was some learning curve of, well, what temperature do I need? And how, what's the washability and this and that. But it's been a pretty high speed process from Aaron 3 years ago when you sent me a message, because we talk about this show all the time in a chat.
Yep.
And you said, well, what do you know about DTF printing? And I said, well, I don't know. What is it? And here we are today doing
That's
a
how
show
we started this podcast.
and that's doing an entire training on it.
That's right. That's right. We did. Yeah, that's right. That's right. You went all in, but that's also how we started this podcast. You said yes first, just like the DTF training. You said yes first, and then what is it?
What's a podcast?
We'll figure it out. All right.
Don't throw stones at me, any new listeners. That was 12 years ago. We've been on the air for 12 years.
Yeah, exactly. And and honestly, the only reason I knew anything about it is I was listening to a volleyball podcast. So there was podcasting was not a thing when we started this. So,
hey, Aaron, a little side note here too. I think that companies are going to have to start posting how their garments are decorated, and my reason for that is most everything you order today on like Amazon, there's a very high likelihood it's a DTF print. Yeah. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but just like screen printing, there are lots and lots of screen printers. There aren't very many good screen printers. It's the same with DTF. When you get a shirt in, and we have one here that came in a couple of weeks ago that was purchased on Amazon, and there were like bubbles in the print where it wasn't applied properly. And so I think that we're going to reach a point, because of people doing shoddy work in DTF, that people are going to want to know, is this a screen print? Is this a screen print transfer? Is it a DTF transfer? I think that's going to happen. I should save that for the show at the end of the year where we talk about, hey, I think this is going to happen.
Yeah, there you go. Well, there you go. You can just make a note. I know you got your junior yellow legal pad there, so.
But don't steal my idea, man.
All right. I was going to do that, but all right. Quick. Let's see here what we got from the listeners. Definitely want to keep you guys, whatever you want to chat about there. Dean says, I wonder if when Epson will drop their dedicated DTF printer, or one of the other big format guys will. Why is it taking them so long to enter the space? I can give my opinion real quick because I'm not as close to it as you. When we think about these big companies, it's just that they're these huge companies, and there's so much involved that there's no turning on a dime for them. I mean,
it's like a battleship,
or
an aircraft carrier.
Yeah,
it's hard to turn them.
And we might sit and look at DTF and go, oh my gosh, it's the future, but for them, it's not a big enough market yet. They're still, selling what they need to sell to maintain their market share. Like they need big market share numbers to be able to. So that's my personal opinion from not being so closely related to it. But my dealings with Epson in the past is just they're so big, it's so hard for them to turn quickly. There's so many people involved in these decisions. There's so much that goes into them putting their name on something, right? Where everybody else is just taking their technology and slapping their name on the side of it and saying, here's a DTF printer. So,
well, it's like that. It's like that rock star who was an overnight success. They just came out of nowhere and landed on top. I do know that Epson, when they came out with the F2000 19 years ago, no, not 19 years ago, 12 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
It had been in development secretly for 3 years. So
And so since DTF's only 3 years old, who knows what's
there
coming
you
down.
go. I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah. All right. Doug Sobel says, what DTF and screen print transfer venues have you tested? For me personally, I've used transferdepot.com and then some
Are you
personal
talking about
contacts that I have.
places to buy transfers?
Yeah. Transfer Express, I guess, would be another location. I don't know if there's anybody else you ever recommend, Terry.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's somebody in New Jersey, and I'm trying to remember what his DTF company is, and I can tell you in just a second.
Okay.
But I know he's a fast turn guy.
Okay.
If you bear with me, fill some space for a second.
Yeah, definitely. Well, while you're looking that up, I wanted to talk to our buddy Doug Quinn. He says, it's official. I'm developing a beachfront property into 52 lots in St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands. If you two ever stop talking and decide to retire, plan on visiting. Doug, can we do the
podcast? Put me down.
Yeah. We're in. How's the internet? Can we do the podcast from there? So anyhow, all right. You find it, Terry?
Yes. I don't see the name of his. Well, it's the number 3C Signs in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And he does lots of DTF transfers, does really good work.
All right.
I know that he had under license printed for the Taylor Swift Eras tour.
Cool.
It was cool. DTF transfers on Golf House.
Does that make him a Swiftie?
Yes, it does. The number of pieces he told me he did, he is definitely a Swiftie. I don't know if he listens to any of her music, but he's a Swiftie.
He's a Swiftie. Got it. Dean says DTF Rocket is his suggestion, and Transfer Express, he's tested quite a few so far. All right. So our next module was substrates, but I think we've kind of covered
I think we
that,
can.
right? Let's talk about, we also then talked about the environment, right? We're talking about water-based printers here. So tell us about the environment that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is true of DTG and DTF. This is basically very similar water-based ink. So, you hear people say, well, my print head's always clogged. What's wrong with the machine? What's wrong with the ink? What's wrong with the pre-treat? It's almost always environment. Yeah. So for DTG and DTF printers, for maximum operation, you need 40% plus humidity in the room. Yep. And I know some of these DTF machines are big. You still have to run a humidifier if you're in a place like Phoenix where average humidity is 10%. Hey, if you're in New Orleans, you rock, man. But you need that 40% plus humidity. Ideally, you need to be in an office type temperature. And I know a lot of folks out there in screen printing shops, it's 50 degrees when you get to work and it's 100 degrees when you leave the shop. But you really need to control the environment for all these machines. And I'm going to say, go out and buy a hygrometer.
Yes.
HYGRO meter hygrometer. They're $10 on Amazon, and maintain that at least 40%. I will guarantee you this: do proper maintenance on your machine and have the proper environment. That's going to eliminate 90% of all the issues you have with your machine. And Aaron, we've talked about this before. Not enough people who sell these machines tell you that. And I talk to people all the time who said, I didn't have any idea about humidity when I bought the machine. Yeah. Nobody told me. And I've told people before, I don't think you should buy this machine if you want to put it out on your screen printing floor. It's just, all it's going to do is cause problems for you. So I recommend you don't do it. Yeah. And because it's just going to be a nightmare for you.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned humidity. Even if you're in a humid climate, I mean, we're here in St. Louis. It's humid here, but in the wintertime, when we're running our heaters, that sucks all of the humidity out of the air, and it can get really dry real quick. So I've got an industrial size humidifier in my basement, and we run that pretty regularly during the wintertime.
Yeah. And we're not talking about a huge investment. I mean, you can get a really good humidifier, $150, $250.
Yeah. You're exactly right. It was 100. I think it was about $150, maybe $125. But it's got 2 big jugs on it, so we don't have to fill it up, every hour. And we fill it
And
up
you
a couple
set the
times a week.
humidity, and it just kicks on when it needs to.
Yep,
So,
exactly. Yep.
and by the way, let me just say, don't get one of those mist humidifiers like you put in your kids' room when they have a cold,
Yes.
because that's going to put minerals and stuff like that in the air. And you're going to call up and say, hey, you guys told me to buy a humidifier, and there's like white powder all over everything. That's the minerals that are going into the air and settling. But so what you need is an evaporative humidifier, and that's what you need for equipment humidity.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. Next thing, Terry, we talking about the environment and then safety. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, the inks are super safe. The big concern, Aaron, that we hear all the time is the adhesive powder. I think part of this is there was one company that was trying to do a liquid adhesive. So they really were spreading a lot of rumors about this stuff's really, really dangerous. And when they realized that their liquid adhesive wasn't working, then all of a sudden those stories disappeared, because all their machines now have the powder. We've been using this powder for, like I said, for decades, and without any issue. All I can find about the adhesive powder, Aaron, and I'm going to read this: fumes can cause eye, skin, and respiratory irritation or potentially allergic reaction in some people. So it's not the great evil. I will tell you this: there are more and more companies that not only offer the ink, but offer the adhesive powder that is OECO-Tex Passport certified. So what does that mean? Safe for children, even infant apparel. So just use common sense. Don't powder in a tub and be shaking it like this and ingesting it. Another thing, Aaron, that I found that
Don't snort it.
Don't do that either.
Okay.
Some people. Some companies would say, be very careful with the powder. Make sure you apply it away from the machine. They weren't talking about safety. People were sprinkling the powder on the transfer while it was still on the platen, and it was getting sucked into the machine, and it was causing clogging issues. So rather than say that, they said that they made people think, oh, this stuff isn't safe. No, it isn't safe to get onto your print head, is what they were trying to tell you.
Not safe for print heads.
It was just it was bad messaging. Since we're in political season, it's just bad messaging. It's not me, it's you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, Terry, so hopefully we covered a lot of ground. We appreciate everybody jumping in here.
There are other modules about marketing and things like that we will get into in another day.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, you can get into it today. You just head over to iprintingplus.org. Is that right? Did I get it right? No. And there we go. iLearning. Good Lord, Aaron. Sorry, guys. Being sick, my brain's a little foggy. iLearning.
Ray is over there at Printing United going, no, that's not right.
Sorry, Cassie. iLearningplus.org. Sorry, Ray. And you can go check out DTG, DTF Printing Technology Essentials there. They do have some great color management stuff if you're looking for anything like that. So really good stuff. So Cindy said, I'm working and listening, so my comments are behind. What y'all were talking, I have to say y'all because she's from Texas. What y'all were talking about, given the description of your transfers, why not start with your clients, having them do that now, get ahead? So let me read that one more time. What y'all were talking about, given the description of your transfers, why not start with your clients?
Talking about how the garment's being decorated. I think that individual companies are doing that. I think it's more of the online kind of purchase I'm going on Amazon and I want a New Kids on the Block shirt. I want to know how that's being decorated. I think it's more that I hope anyway that businesses like Cindy's are saying, okay, here's how we're decorating it and here's why.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think you're exactly right. And I think maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Terry, but what you're kind of saying is the consumer is going to start demanding that, right? Like, okay, I've gotten this thing from this company and it was bubbly and not right. So I love that. Okay. All right. Well, Terry, I think, boy, like you said, lots of other stuff there. We've got a whole marketing. Like I mentioned, you've got the
I
great
did
list
way
of
too much
questions.
talking. Sorry.
No, it was perfect. That was perfect. Lots of good stuff there. So let's talk a little bit about what we've got coming up so we can close out here and be somewhat on time today. So
All right.
first, I guess I've got a question for you. Right? Are you tired of wasting time with people who will never buy, people who are only interested in a low price, people who continue to demand more and more and more after they've already gotten a price concession from you? So I've got a program that I get to participate in with my mentor. And in 4 hours or less, we are going to help you develop the tools you need to attract customers you desire and the profits that you deserve. Now, there are only 6 slots available for this because we want it to be something that is very, we're going to, in 4 hours, we're going to cover a lot of ground. And so we need to be working with folks individually here. It's a Zoom online masterclass. It's called Achieve Greater Profits with Fewer Sales. And again, there's only 6 spots available. So if you'll go over to oursuccessgroup.com/greater-profit and check that out and make sure you sign up. The sooner you sign up, the sooner your chance of getting one of those 6 spots is going to occur. Excuse me. The other program that I want to share is an online program that my wife and I put together called Breaking Barriers. And if you're not where you want to be with your business or even your personal life, what we've discovered is there's likely a limiting belief that's holding you back. And so we put together a program that's going to help you identify and right. It's great to know what our limiting beliefs are. I think I know what a lot of mine are, but how do I rewrite those stories? And so if you're interested in that right now, it's only $47. We got that initial founding member price, and you have access to this for forever. Right? You can go back. In fact, I use it to go back personally, and anytime I feel something sticky or stuck, I can just go back and go through the program one more time. So you can go back to it for the lifetime. And this could be something that changes your business or life. So make that investment in yourself. Go to osg.link/unlock. And then the last thing I wanted to share, Terry, is if you're not already a member over at our Facebook group there for our success group, it's called Fall in Love OSG. It's just somewhere that you want to be. Lots of great perspective questions, discussions about more than just surface level stuff. Sure, we'll go wherever you guys want to go, but it is really about that deeper. How do we ask more why questions? How do we fall deeper in love with our business? How do we change our mindset? How do we change our perspective? And how can we put systems in place that allow us to always come from that place of positivity and getting to do what you get to do each day instead of having to do things each day. So facebook.com/groups Fall in Love OSG. Terry, what about you? What's coming up for you?
I just want to comment for everybody out there that Fall in Love OSG is not a dating service. So, and
if you need help though,
we can help you with whatever you got going, right? But your first one where you said attracting the customers you desire, I had this flashback of all the times that people have come up to me and said, in my town, you can only get $5 for a t-shirt.
Yeah.
And my response is always, no, that's not true. You're just talking to the wrong people.
Yep.
So,
you can start using my line with that, Terry. You can just start telling them, oh, so nobody in your town wears a pair of Nike shoes or owns a designer handbag? Interesting.
Exactly. Right.
Because they're willing to pay more for a product than what,
I love it. Right. All right. My complete screen printing business course, I'm going to be in Chicago at Atlas Screen Supply, August 3rd and 4th. I'm going to be at Workhorse Products in Phoenix for that class, August 24th and 25th. And by the way, that I'm not sure about the Chicago class, but I know the one in Phoenix is starting to fill up. I'm going to be having a similar conversation than we did today, DTG and DTF printing at Impressions Expo in Fort Worth, and that's going to be October 24th through 26th. I will be in the Equipment Zone booth at Printing United in Las Vegas, September 10th and 12th. And Aaron, you and I are going to be recording a live show the morning of opening day there. So looking forward to doing that. Watch for all my upcoming events at terrycombs.com. I'm going to go ahead and read Eric's because I think you need to stop talking now. Tune in at 2:30 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time to the, sorry, Eric, I live in Mountain Standard Time. You live in Mountain Daylight Time. For the take up at ericcampbell.com, ERICH. Today's episode is number 195, Stars and Stripes and Stitches, where Eric will use U.S. and other flag designs to teach some digitizing and embroidery techniques that you can use anywhere. Head over to ericcampbell.com and click on the take up link at the top for info and show up every Friday at 2:30 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time to join in on the fun.
Love it. Yeah, definitely go check that out. Eric does some amazing stuff over there. It's a high level class, all for free every week. It's incredible. All right, Terry. Well, we did pretty good. We're just a couple minutes into bonus time here, so excellent job. Thank you for sharing and carrying the load here today, Terry. It's so great to watch you talk about this stuff because you're so passionate about, basically telling people the truth, giving them the honest answers. And I think that's what everybody loves about you. So getting you to shine today has been amazing. So
awesome.
Good job.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
We also want to thank our show producer, Eric Campbell, and not only for producing today, but turning on his camera next week as our guest.
Yeah, we're excited about that. Eric will be joining us. We're dragging him from the backside of the operation here, and now he's still going to have to push the buttons, folks. So Terry and I don't do as good of a job, but he's going to be joining us and really kind of giving us best way to share it is like just how do you get underway as a new digitizer, and even if your digitizer has been doing this for a while, you're going to pick up tips. So Eric's one of those types of guys that even if you've heard all of his stuff before, you're going to learn something new each time. So can't wait to have Eric join us next week on this side of the camera.
Exactly. Until then, I'm Terry Combs. He's Aaron Montgomery.
And that was the Two Regular Guys.
Here we go. We're out.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to Two Regular Guys. Check out our website at tworegularguys.com. That's the number 2, regularguys.com. You can also interact with us over at our Facebook page, facebook.com/tworegularguys, or send us a tweet, twitter.com/tworegularguys. And we have a YouTube page. You can find all that from our website, tworegularguys.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to spending some time with you again next week.